What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Eric Wilson. And bada bing, bada boom, the Italian stallion, Vincent Trocheck, is on a real tear lately. He's had multiple point games in consecutive order. He's been looking really good. And today we want to discuss whether or not Vincent Trocheck should remain the permanent 2C on the Rangers lines. Of course, we know Filipino out with an injury for now, but could be returning real soon from what we're seeing. Seems like Hedl is close to being activated off of injured reserve and put back into the lines. But when he is brought back to the team, should he go right back to his 2C role, or should he be centering the third line because of how well Vincent Trocheck has been playing on that second line with Artemi Panarin? That's the topic in today's episode. We're going to go ahead and discuss it. But before we dive into all that, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. If you listen on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Rangers. But without further ado, Eric, how are you doing today, my friend? And what is your reaction to the way that Vincent Trocheck has played in recent weeks?
I'm doing pretty good, and I'm very impressed with Trocheck over the last couple of games. I've always been a big Trocheck enjoyer ever since we signed him last summer. I knew he was going to be something special with the Rangers. I know maybe I thought the deal might have been a little too long, but that's not the topic of today's episode. He had a pretty good first season with the Rangers, 64 points in 82 games. Very, very solid. And he's been playing pretty incredible this season so far, even down on the third line for most of it. He has 10 points in 13 games played, given 6 of those points have come over the last 3 games. But I'm pretty impressed. And heading into this season, I was one of those fans that was very big on giving the kids their shot in the top 6. I really wanted Kakko and Lafreniere on the wings in the top 6, and I really wanted to see Filip Hedl as that second line center. And it's not that Hedl has been bad. He has 6 points in 10 games, still looking for that first goal whenever he gets back. But it's just the fact that since Hedl was injured, Trocheck has returned back onto that second line with Panarin, with Lafreniere, and he has done nothing but succeed. He's been scoring goals, he's been scoring assists, and he's looked pretty phenomenal. And it does raise the question, when Hedl comes back, should Hedl be demoted back down to the third line?
Yeah, I think it does raise the question. I mean, honestly, what we're seeing from Vincent Trocheck is phenomenal. I just think that he's playing so well right now. He's scoring goals. He's getting assists. Like, he's playing great. And the scoring goals factor here is kind of the big one to take notice of. 13 games played, 4 goals, 6 assists, compared to Filip Hedl, who had 0 goals and 6 assists in 10 games. And that's a really big difference there, because when you're looking at point production, when you're looking at putting the puck in the net, Trocheck is doing that, combining well with Artemi Panarin. They're both putting the puck in the net, both scoring goals and collecting points together. But when Filip Hedl was on that line, he wasn't exactly finding that kind of success, wasn't scoring goals. And so I'm wondering now, we have Kaapo Kakko recently was demoted off the first line. Filip Hedl coming back. Will he be back on the third line? It almost looks like the Rangers are probably going to be moving away from the pushing the kids into the top 6 thing. And so I want to ask you, Eric, do you think that Filip Hedl should stay in the top 6 just because we need to give the kids top 6 ice time? Or are you kind of in the same thought that I am, where you can't force it? Like, if he's not playing as well in the top 6 as Trocheck, you got to go with the guy who's performing, give him his flowers, kind of give him what he's earned there. That's how I feel about Trocheck. He deserves to be in the top 6 because of the way that he's playing. And I don't think that Laviolette should just force it and put Hedl in the top 6 just because we want to develop these younger guys and give these kids, so to speak, the top 6 ice time.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that Hedl deserves some top 6 ice time. Like I said, he hasn't looked bad. He's on pace. Assuming he didn't get injured, he would have been on pace for like another mid 40 point range season, which isn't bad by any means. It's just the fact that there's not really any room. Lafreniere, if he's not playing center, he's going to have to move him to a wing. Kreider and Panarin, they're not getting moved. Lafreniere has looked very solid playing on that second line as well. And yeah, right now, Blake Wheeler is up on the first line right wing. But let's say Hedl goes up there, then you got to move Wheeler back down, but then Kakko's in that position. So then it just becomes a whole mess of moving people around and breaking up chemistry that has been working for a long time. The Rangers are on an 8-game point streak. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I think when Hedel does come back, there's really nowhere else you can put him. He's either going to reclaim his second line center spot, Trocheck's going to go back down, or it's going to be vice versa, where Trocheck stays the same and Hedel finds himself back on the third line with kind of the kid line 2.0 with Kakko and Cooley.
Yeah, I guess that would be the kid line 2.0. The only one safe seemingly here is Alexi Lafreniere, which is quite funny. I mean, you think back to Alexi Lafreniere last season. I even threw out the idea of potentially trading him. I got some conflicting responses to that at the time. But then we got to this past offseason. A lot of Rangers fans want Alexi Lafreniere to be traded, but now he's playing well. He's really earned that top six ice time, and he's really risen to the occasion. But unfortunately, I mean, that's been the surprise, is the fact that Lafreniere, of the three guys, has risen to the occasion. But the other two, so to speak, kind of haven't. You know, they've kind of faltered in some ways. I mean, like, I agree with you. Filip Chytil was playing well. He wasn't having a bad season by any means. Was on pace to have a pretty good year. But you compare the way that he was playing in the top six to the way Vincent Trocheck is playing in the top six, and I think it's pretty obvious you have to go with the hot hand here, and you have to give Vincent Trocheck what he's earned, and that is the top six ice time. So do you envision that Peter Laviolette is going to roll with Vincent Trocheck even though Filip Chytil is returning? And also, do you think that it's going to be kind of one of those situations where Filip Chytil returns in on the third line and then works his way back into the top six? Or do you think that this is like Vincent Trocheck has proven that he should be in the top six definitively?
I think it can go either way, to be completely honest with you, because, yeah, over the last 3 games, Trocheck has 6 points. He's like, besides Artemi Panarin, he's like the hottest forward on the Rangers right now, but that could easily change. Hedel's making good progress on his return, but there's still really no exact expected date of return. You know, it could be in a couple days, it could be a week or two. Who knows when it comes to this injury, because the Rangers are keeping it very under wraps. So yeah, Trocheck's hot right now, but who knows? That could easily change. He could go scoreless for the next 3 games, and then maybe Hedel will just come and reclaim his spot. But assuming Trocheck continues to play good, because he's a great player, he's playing with Panarin and Lafreniere, who are both also very hot right now. I think it could very well be the thing where Hedel starts down on the third line, and, you know, it's not even just skill wise and because Trocheck's playing so good, but to kind of just ease Hedel back into it. We don't know exactly what's going on with this injury, but if it's been keeping Hedel out this long, it's definitely something kind of serious that, you know, maybe it's best if we don't just throw him right back into a fast pace, like point producing second line, and he kind of goes down on that third line a little bit. And then if he starts to heat up and then Trocheck slows down, the switch can be made. I could also see Laviolette going with the original idea that I pitched a lot during the offseason, where the two kind of rotate a lot, because, you know, obviously you're going to want to build up chemistry as you get deeper into the season with your lineup. But if both Trocheck and Hedel are finding success on the second line, swap them every couple of games until Laviolette has a finalized idea over who he wants going forward for the majority of the season. So there are definitely a lot of options on the table, and it's going to be interesting to see how Trocheck continues to play, because you look at it, the last 2 games, the Rangers beat Detroit. They're a solid team, but they're not the greatest. And then the Rangers played against Minnesota, who hasn't been a solid team, even though they did end our win streak. So there's a lot of factors at hand here. I don't want to undermine Trocheck, because obviously he's an amazing hockey player and I'm very happy that he's succeeding, but who knows what's going to happen when the Rangers go up against a team like Vegas or Boston or someone who could very well shut the Rangers down.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be a true test for the Rangers and a true test for Vincent Trocheck in that second line. But I just have to say, that second line, Artemi Panarin, Vincent Trocheck, Alexi Lafreniere, those are arguably my 3 favorite players on this team. I love this line. I want more than anything for this line to remain intact and remain successful. I mean, in my opinion, those are the 3 funniest guys on the team. You got Panarin with the bald. I mean, I'm just a big fan of my Italian players, so I love Vincent Trocheck there. And then Alexi Lafreniere, that's my guy. I love that second line. I don't want to break that up at all. And so I kind of want to transition that into asking you about that second line, your thoughts on it. I mean, they're performing so well, but do you think that Artemi Panarin, I mean, he's had a point every single game. He looks like he's going to break that record. He needs a point in the next game to tie it. If he gets a point after that, he breaks the record, most consecutive points to start the season. So Artemi Panarin's on a tear. And he was on the tear before Trocheck came up onto the line with Hedel. But have you seen any difference in the way that either Panarin or Lafreniere have been playing with Trocheck? Because we're talking about Trocheck ascends into the top six. He starts playing some really good hockey. He looks a lot better than he did down on the third line. But what do you think about Lafreniere and Panarin? Do you think that they are looking better as well with Trocheck, or do you think that they've kind of just been good all season and it doesn't necessarily matter for them who's centering the line?
I think that they've looked like the two versions of the second line, one with Trocheck, one with Hedel. They've both looked really good. I've been saying it all season. It's been the Rangers' best line, and it's been the best line with both players. Trocheck has more points to go along with it than Hedel does, but I guess Hedel technically has more points, but Trocheck has more points in less games, if you know what I'm saying. So I think they're both playing very well with both players. But I think the big difference is that kind of gives Trocheck the edge here is the face-offs. Trocheck at this point of the season is second in the NHL in face-off win percentage with 62.9% of face-offs won. That's an incredible stat. Last season, the Rangers were abysmal at face-offs. I think Trocheck was the only player to finish with like more face-offs won than lost. And I don't have every center currently pulled up, but I wouldn't be surprised if he is currently still the only one with over 50% of faceoffs won, and man, like almost 63%. Like it's like no one really cares about faceoff stats too much, but I'm very big on the fact that it's a very underrated and important stat because you win the faceoff, you get offensive possession, and then that's how you score. You can't score when you lose a faceoff and the other team's rushing up against you. Which kind of happens when Hedel takes his faceoffs, as he only has 43.3% of faceoffs won this season. That's really bad compared to someone who's really good. So overall, I think both contribute a lot and both lines are successful. But because of that one factor alone, that sounds small, but in actuality is pretty major. I think it might just be a little better with Trocheck.
Yeah, I would agree with you. So then I guess the remaining question would be Trocheck's up on the second line. The second line looks like a masterpiece in my opinion with Panarin, Trocheck, and Lafreniere. But how are we feeling about that third line right now? I mean, we know, of course, the third line was having a little bit of a struggle there with Blake Wheeler, who he moves up onto the first line, finally gets himself a point. We can all be happy about that. Blake Wheeler finally doing something productive. But now you're looking at the third line. Cooley, Bonino, Capo Caco. But of course, as we said, Philip Hedel expected to return right into that third line center role. Bonino gets kicked down or kicked out even. But do you think that, I guess the question is, and we kind of had this discussion last season when Gallant was changing all the lines, is it best for the Rangers to load up that top six, put Trocheck in there, and then kind of have like a less productive bottom six? Or do you think they should have more balance and that Trocheck can bring that balance by being like a goal scorer and like a real star down on the third line while Philip Hedel kind of like balances out that second line with a little bit more grit, a little bit more of playmaking and not as much goal scoring? Do you think that that's something that the Rangers need to worry about? Or do you think that, you just put together the best lines possible in terms of best players on the first line, second best players on the second line, like kind of like that order? Or is there some worry in your mind about balancing all of those lines together?
I think everything needs to be a little balanced because that was where everything went wrong last season when every single player in the top six was just like a pretty boy point scorer, Patrick Kane. But and it backfired. And as soon as the point scorers didn't produce points, they contributed nothing else. And even guys like Panarin were like completely useless to the Rangers because that was all that we had. And the bottom six didn't really step up either. So I think that was a big thing why I was a huge defender of Capo Caco on that first line because, yeah, he wasn't producing a lot of points, but his strength and grit and physicality was enough for me to validate his standing on the first line. And I thought he was looking really, really good despite those points. But I guess Peter Laviolette saw something else. But so I guess Blake Wheeler is kind of doing that. Wheeler doesn't produce a lot of points, but he's still a big guy. He's a little slow nowadays because he's like a dried up worm in the sun. But I think there needs to be balance. And that's kind of what I liked about the third line when Trocheck was on it, because you had Blake Wheeler, I just broke him down. Will Cooley is a kind of like the young version of um, Wheeler, where he's a strong player. He makes the dirty plays along the boards, and he still produces points while doing it. And then Trocheck was kind of just the middleman who plays amazing defense, but also has the ability to help generate offense. And I don't think Heedle has that ability, where Heedle is more of an offensive type of guy. You're not really going to see Heedle throwing around the body or doing anything like that. So that kind of just makes me wonder, like, what do we do with Heedle then? Because I really, really want to see Trocheck in that second line, but just the way that the third line is structured, I don't know if Heedle is the fit for that. So maybe you keep Benino as the third line center, and then you find a spot for Heedle on the wing, but then it creates a whole chain of events that I don't even know how to begin to break down. It'd be like surgical work for Laviolette to create new lines. So I don't really know. Like, I think there's pros and cons to both options here. I think I might just have to lean towards Trocheck on the second line, Heedle on the third line, and just kind of hope that he's able to adjust his game to work on a more like physical defensive third line.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the best route here for the Rangers to take. I mean, as I've said, I'm a huge proponent of keeping Vincent Trocheck in the top six. I just think he's been playing so well on that line alongside Panarin, alongside Lafreniere. Like that unit right there just looks good to me. That line looks so solid. I mean, so many points are being produced from those three. Obviously, Artemi Panarin having a historic start to his season, but Vincent Trocheck can't be slept on with the way that he's performing, and we've seen a real uptick in his productivity and a real increase in his level of performance since moving up into that top six. And in my opinion, I think that he has earned a more permanent stay up there on that second line as the center. I mean, you think back, Eric, I'm going to say he who shall not be named, when the Rangers had Ryan Strome, the big problem for them was they needed to go find that 2C. They went ahead, they got Vincent Trocheck to be that 2C. And then, of course, changing overturn at the coaching changes. They had to make a little bit of a swap there. They wanted to give Philip Hedl top six ice time, but really, you think back on it, Trocheck was brought here to be the 2C, and now he's playing that role, and he's playing it exceptionally well. And in my opinion, I think that he should continue playing that well. So to answer the big question of this episode, Vincent Trocheck, I think that he deserves a permanent stay in the top six. I think that he should be the second line center. I love the way that line is playing. I think it's phenomenal, and I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing them continue to dominate. I mean, at times they've been dominant, hoping to see them continue that up for the next few weeks. But like you said, once we face a real solid squad, like one of those teams that has the firepower to really slow down the Rangers, then we'll see what happens. And if this line continues to perform at that level, I'm confident that it will. But if not, I do trust in Peter Laviolette. He's earned my trust and confidence so far this season. He's made the necessary changes. He hasn't flip-flopped the lines around too much. This change only due to an injury. He had to make this change. So I don't know. I just think that everything Laviolette's doing so far, really solid. I'm confident in it. And I'm confident in Vincent Trocheck remaining on that second line.
I am as well. And I have taken the last 30 seconds to cook up my official mock lines that I would like to see. Now, I don't know how Heedle is on the wing. So for this, we're just going to assume that he's really good at playing right wing. We got a first line of Kreider, Zibanejad, and Heedle, right? We put him up on that first line, and we let him cook with the boys up there. Second line stays the same. Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere, which gives us a bottom six of Will Cooley, Nick Bonino, and Capo Caco. And then fourth line, Jimmy Vesey, Barclay Goudreau, hopefully soon to be gone. And then I wrote down Wheeler. It could be Pitlick. I don't care if he scored a goal. I'm still a Wheeler hater.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still not crazy about Blake Wheeler either. I don't know. I still think that very soon we're going to have the conversation about Brennan Othman making his NHL debut, because I just don't think Blake Wheeler is it. And I don't think that he's helping this team win games right now. Maybe he had that point, turns things around, starts to play better. I'm not so sure. But one thing that I am confident in, it is Vincent Trocheck, the way he's playing alongside Artemi Panarin. I love this second line. I want to see it stay intact. So let us know what you guys think, though. Vincent Trocheck, is he the permanent 2C? Maybe not. Maybe Philip Hedl returns and you think that he belongs on that second line. Maybe they should balance things out better. I don't know. but we want to hear your thoughts. So make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. And comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you listen on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Rangers. But without further ado, we'll catch you all on the next one. Have a good one. And let's go
Let's
Rangers.
go Rangers.